Damascus in Syria had been an important city since the beginning of Christianity. It was on the road to Damascus that Saul, who of course is the apostle St. Paul, heard the risen Lord and his heart was converted. From there, St. Paul went on to preach to the early church. We, of course, know that ultimately St. Paul was martyred for his faith, and we celebrate both his and St. Peter's martyrdom together on the 29th of June. It was also in Syria that the earliest Maronites lived. Inspired by our great father, the monk Saint Maroon, they flourished. Over time, many fled to the safety of the mountains of Lebanon. However, a church and a community remained in Damascus. The Massabki family had been in Damascus for a long time, and even though at times they had fled persecution, they had always returned. There had been many priests, deacons, and a nun from the Massabki family, and the family was known for its piety and Christian values. The Massabki brothers lived in Damascus in the 19th century. They were the sons of Maronite Massabki and his wife, who was from the Cheer family. They had 6 children, 4 boys, Francis, Abdelmahati and Raphael, and Abdullah, who later became a priest. They also had 2 girls, Mariam and Martha. Francis was a tall man. He was married to Elizabeth Cheer, who was from his mother's family. Together they had 8 children, Mikhail, Peter, Antoine, Mariam, Juraya, Catherine, Teresa and Suzanne, and they raised their family according to their Maronite values. Francis owned a silk shop and was a successful and trusted silk trader both in Damascus and in Lebanon. Francis was known for his generosity and charity in giving to the poor and the needy and to his church. He had helped restore and renovate the church in Damascus and had helped in buying the house next to the church. The doors to his home were always open to visitors and tourists. Despite all his wealth and prominence, he remained a faithful man living a faithful life. He prayed the rosary every day and attended Mass and received communion on most days before work. Once, when Francis went to Aleppo for private business with a companion, and he was sleeping at a merchant's place, he was saying his evening prayers. When the host noticed him saying Christian prayers, he glanced sideways at him and became cold and distant. So Francis turned to his companion and said, "Let us leave and go where we can be free in practicing our religious obligations." Raphael was a short and thin man who remained single and assisted in the convent. He had a great devotion to Our Lady and would pray for long hours in the church of the Franciscan convent each day. Abdelmahati had a calm nature and enjoyed solitude. He was married, and together with his wife they had 5 children, Naami, Yusuf, Mariam, Wardi and Hanni. They lived together with Francis's family in one house. His youngest daughter, Hanni, entered the convent and became a nun. He was a teacher at the Franciscan school where he taught religion. As he became older, his brother Francis opened a shop for him. Because Abdelmahati was so generous, the shop lost money and had to be closed. His son Naami said about his father later, "After saying his morning prayers, my father would go to the Franciscan church and attend the whole Mass while genuflecting on his knees. He took communion every 8 days and on feast days. On the evening of Holy Thursday, he would go to the church and kneel down until the morning of Good Friday. He would stay in the convent until Sunday at midnight, after which he would go to the Maronite church to attend Easter midnight Mass and take communion. It is only after this was over that he would go back home. He did this throughout his life. He fasted during Lent and abstained from eating even oil. He also fasted every Saturday and would abstain on Wednesdays and Fridays. By 1860, under the Ottomans, political and sectarian tension for Maronites and other Christians in both Damascus and Mount Lebanon had increased, and many Maronites had been killed. Things in Damascus had become very dangerous. The city's Christian district was being burned. On 9 July 1860, a fire had torn through the Christian quarters of Damascus, and the Massabki Brothers and some other Maronite families had taken refuge in the Franciscan convent. At about 11 o'clock, the Father Superior, Emmanuel, closed the monastery doors and called everyone to the church, where they prayed, made their confessions to the priests, prayed for the intercession of the Blessed Mother, participated in the procession of the Holy Eucharist, and proceeded to Holy Communion. Then all except Francis, who remained kneeling at the feet of the sorrowful Mother, went up to the roof. Moments later, the aggressors entered and caught Father Superior Emmanuel, who told them, "Come, let me lead you to a treasure inside the church." When he went up to the altar, he lit 2 candles, took out the Eucharist from the tabernacle to protect it, and said, "This is the treasure. I have nothing else." He was then put to death. The aggressors saw Francis kneeling in prayer and recognized him, for he was a man of stature in the city. According to his nephew Naimi, who was 12 years old at the time and who hid and survived the massacre, the aggressors said to Francis, "Sheikh Abdullah has sent us to save you from death, you, your brothers, your families, and all those who depend upon you for protection, on the condition that you deny your faith and convert." Francis answered them, "Sheikh Abdullah can take my money. He can also take my life. But my faith no one can make me deny. I am a Christian, and on the faith of Christ I will die." They replied, "We shall kill you then." So Francis said, "I shall be with my Lord, who told us, 'Do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the soul.'" The men killed him. The men caught Abdelmaati in the convent yard next to the church and also asked him to renounce his faith to escape death, but he also refused. As for Raphael, who was hiding inside the convent, his fate was no better. When he refused to renounce his faith in order to escape death, he remained in prayer and was also beheaded. According to witnesses, the 3 Massabki brothers were buried in the convent, along with the 8 martyr priests and others who had sought refuge there. On October 7, 1926, His Holiness Pope Pius XI proclaimed the beatification of the 3 brothers. We pray for the day when these 3 great Maronite martyrs are canonized as saints. Thankfully, in Australia, we do not have to fear being Christians. However, it is important that we always stand up for our rights to practice and live our faith freely. In the Middle East recently, things have once again deteriorated for Christians, in particular in Syria and Iraq. We pray through the intercession of the Blessed Massabki Brothers for peace in the Middle East, especially Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, lands which continue to face oppression and bloodshed. We pray for forgiveness and love, and for the rescue of the persecuted and the displaced of the flock.